Hello, and welcome to today's video. This took me a while to make. I will be watching and reviewing every single Steven Spielberg movie ever made. That is a pretty daunting task, considering there are a total of 34 movies that he's made. That is a lot. And a lot more than George Lucas, who's made 6. But that doesn't matter. So, since there are so many, he's directed some other things. First of all, I'm not going to review any of his short films like I did with Stanley Kubrick. I'm not going to review any of the TV show episodes he did, well, except for Savage, but I'll talk about that one later. I also am not going to review any of the movies he wrote or anything like that or produced, because there are just so many of them. And I'm also not going to review Twilight Zone, the movie, because he only partially directed that one. He directed one segment of it, and I didn't want to watch it, so there was no reason for me to, so I'm not going to watch it, so, yeah. Now, aside from that, I believe that we're going to want to get to the reviewing. So, Firelight. One of Steven Spielberg's, his first. That's something, I guess. I don't know if there's anything to talk about, considering it's Lost. So, I'm going to talk about the story behind it. It's very interesting. So, it was an amateur project, and he shot it in his house, and on land he found it was really just, he didn't have any budget. Well, $500. Very low budget. Through the advertising of his friends and family, he released it in one theater. 500 tickets, $1 each. That means he made $500. Wait, no, somebody paid double, so that means that this was technically a commercial success for him. Got the taste of fortune early on in his career, I guess, by making a total of $1 at the box office. He then put his 2 reels, he was looking for work. He put his 2 reels as a showcase of his talent to a production company that went bankrupt. So we don't know where they are. But I am hopeful that they exist out somewhere, because they weren't destroyed. They could have been, but it's likely that it's still out there. Somewhere. Don't know where, but probably there. There is surviving about 3 minutes of footage. I watched all of it. Couldn't understand what was going on, but, so there's really nothing to talk about, so, there. That's Firelight. I give it a don't know, never saw it, so I can't rate it out of 10. So, next movie we're watching, we're watching it right now. I guess I'm not watching it now, but this is the one I watched. Duel. Don't know why it's called Duel. There has to be a reason. Doesn't have anything to do with the duel, so I don't know why it's called that. But it's a thriller about a man who annoys a truck driver, and the truck driver tries to kill him for the rest of the day. That's it. Okay, cut. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. There's more to talk about. It's not very interesting. It's just about a truck. I do find it kind of interesting how the truck, we never see the driver. I mean, that's kind of like a fake, artsy thing. Like, I could do it if I wanted to. It's not hard. But I guess it is kind of interesting to never see the guy driving the truck. I guess it's like the fear of the unknown. Although I do have a criticism that, why? Why do we need to fear the unknown? I know I understand why we fear the unknown, but it's not scary. I would rather have a motivation. I would rather have this be a mystery instead of, like, just about a guy who tries to avoid a truck. It's not very interesting. Some people like it. I know that my granddad likes it. I guess see it if you want to. Although there are some good parts. The acting from the main character is good. The props are good. It's actually a really good, well-made film. Especially on the budget level. Although I do think that the villain and the plot are kind of stupid, I do think that it's a well-made movie. So I give it a 5 out of 10. So, this movie is Something Evil. It's a horror film, probably a precursor to Poltergeist. The stories are pretty similar. About a woman who gets possessed by the devil, or her son gets possessed by the devil. I didn't really pay very much close attention. This is the definition of a cheesy horror movie from the 80s. I'm pretty sure that's when it came out. That is the definition of what it is. It's not more, not less. I've seen a lot of recent horror movies that are better than this. It's not that good. It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad. There's some redeeming qualities to it, like the fact that it's a Steven Spielberg movie. The acting is, I don't know, fine. It's a TV movie it's a cheesy TV horror film. If that's what you're looking for, it fulfills that request. It's nothing more, though. It's not a masterpiece of cinema. Or it's also not good compared to other horror movies from back in the day, or now, for that matter, or TV movies back then or now either. Although TV movies now are a lot better. It's not very good. So I give it a 4 out of 10. So, this is Savage. I'm sorry that there was not a poster, because as far as I know, they never made a poster for this movie. Because technically, it's not. It is, though. At the same time, it's a TV pilot. But it's not a normal TV pilot. It was a TV show that was piloted by a movie. Meaning, this is a movie, but it's also the first episode of a TV show that never got past the first episode. This pilot was never picked up, even though it's pretty good. It should have been. There's some pretty boring parts of it, but I do have to say, overall, I did like the mystery elements of it. It's about a guy who finds some dirt on one of the Supreme Court picks. He's been ordering people to get murdered, I guess. And so it's like a mystery about that. It's good. It's pretty good. So I would say that I give this movie a 7 out of 10. You'll be hearing that a lot. So, the Sugarland Express, considered by most and me to be Steven Spielberg's first real, actual film. It was a pretty low budget, about 14 million, less than that, I don't know. Not much. And it didn't make much back, but it was a good film. Not amazing, not terrible, fine. It's really the essence of mediocre. I thought that there were some good things, there were some bad things. It's essentially about a girl who breaks his husband out of prison, and things just get worse from there. I did kind of enjoy that, although the acting, in my opinion, was bad. I thought the story was kind of badly put together, and I thought that really there wasn't much special after the first half hour, so yeah, that's my opinion on it. I give it a 5 out of 10. So, this is Jaws. His first really big film. It's good. It's really good. I do have to say that the movie is really good until they start fighting the shark on that boat. Once that happens, okay, I guess once the shark starts attacking the boat when they're like drunk in the like down at the bottom of the boat, that's when I start to be like, okay, I don't care anymore. So it's really good until then. Until then it's just like a fighting a shark movie. It's not very good in my opinion after that, but that was the last point where my opinion is that's where it's like good. So it's from there to there, and that's where it starts to be good. So there are some good things, the acting pretty good. There are a lot of memorable catchphrases, a lot of memorable shots. The sharks looks fake. Yeah, but everyone says that. So, yeah, it wasn't scary. I don't know why people say it was so scary when they saw it. It wasn't scary to me. Didn't make me afraid of water or anything. So I give it a 7 out of 10. So, this is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. A classic, no doubt. I say that it is good. It wasn't as big as Jaws was, but it was a big deal. It's a good movie. It's good. But it's not that good. It's got good things, it's got bad things. I felt like I was kind of bored throughout the movie. Like, there was lots of crazy stuff happening, but I just felt like for most of the film, except for the for the ending, I just thought was pointless. I mean, well, it had a point. It was just badly executed. And I think that it's more enjoyable if you're a fan of Steven Spielberg. I don't know, maybe I'll think back to this, and I'll be like, I'm a bigger fan of him now, but I just, like, that's what happened with Kubrick, but I don't know, I just don't really feel like I like him that much, but maybe I'll be wrong. The movie is, I don't know, it just feels like it's kind of boring, but it's the superior Alien film. It's the best one that he made. Of all of the Alien films, it's the best. I don't care. So, yeah, it took a lot of themes and ideas and shots from Firelight, which he wouldn't have made it if Firelight still existed, I think. Honestly. Or, well, it's more of a soft remake of Firelight, actually. I don't know. I give it a 5 out of 10. This is 1941. A satire directed by Steven Spielberg, obviously, starring Dan Aykroyd of Ghostbusters fame, and other people that that are famous, but I don't remember the names of. This is one of the worst satire comedies I have ever seen. Well, aside from the movies. Those are bad. This is one of the worst old satire films I've ever seen. It is boring, unfunny. I didn't laugh at a single one of the jokes. Wasted cast, bad acting, bad gags. And the only impressive thing, I think, throughout the entire movie is the fact at the end they throw a house off of a cliff, which is pretty impressive, because that must have been expensive. There is not much to talk about here, because it is a comedy, and it's not funny. It has grown a cult audience over the years, and does it deserve it? Yes. If you like the film, go ahead, like it. I'm not gonna lambast your opinions, even if they're unpopular. It's not, I don't like it, though. It's about the, it's a comedy about after the bombing of Pearl Harbor and the nation's response, which can be done right, but I think it's done in poor taste. But, I don't have a problem talking about current events, and this wasn't a current event. This is old. I don't have a problem talking about historical events where people died and making fun of them. It just doesn't do it very well, and it's kind of disrespectful to the time. So I'm going to give it a 4. Not a 4. I'm not going to give it a 4. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is a pretty good movie. I do have to remark even though we've gotten used to this movie, considering I was born several years after this film was made, it's kind of, interesting how the two biggest directors at the time decided to team up. Jaws had been the number 1 highest grossing film of all time by now, right? And so had Star Wars. So George Lucas and Steven Spielberg teaming up, that was a pretty big deal. And with Harrison Ford, who was already pretty popular. We knew him from Star Wars and this movie. So he was... It was a big deal. It was a big deal. And it did not disappoint. While this movie I don't think has aged amazingly, and there are a lot of drawn-out fight scenes that I think are dumb, and the love interests are always bad. Always. Never good. Always bad. They got rid of them after the Temple of Doom, I'm pretty sure. But, yeah, they're bad. So, Harrison Ford is good in this. It's not my favorite, but it's one of the good ones. So I give it a 7 out of 10. So, this is E.T. Now, I've mostly followed the popular opinion for most of these reviews, but for this one, I have to make an exception. This is my least favorite Steven Spielberg movie I have ever seen. It's possible that that's just because of the fact that all of them, it's been so hyped up, but no, I hate it. In all of the other ones, I see something in them. This one, I don't, really. The only reason it keeps me from giving it a 1 is that E.T. is a pretty cool effect. And it looks realistic. I mean, it is real, like it's real. It's not like CGI. But it looks like a real alien, and that's a pretty creative design. But that's it. That's the only good thing in this entire movie. The acting is terrible. The story is cliched and bad. The special effects are pretty bad, aside from E.T. There's nothing. There's nothing. I hate this story. I hate it. 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 I hate this movie. This is terrible. I don't understand why so many people like it. It's not good. It's not that good. I mean, you're allowed to like the film if you want. But I have to go against popular opinion. I just don't like it. I just think it's a bad, like, kind of coming-of-age story, except it's not really coming-of-age, but it is kind of about a kid who, like, learns to, I don't know, he makes friends with an alien. It's really boring, and there are other better movies that do this better, so watch them. Okay, I don't want to watch it. Don't watch this. I mean, maybe you'll like it. If you are, I don't know. Maybe you'll disagree with me if you watch it, but if you want my opinion, don't watch it. It's bad. It's terrible. It's the worst one he's made. It is a 2 out of 10. So this is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Now, this is a kind of weird opinion, because for the most part, there's good and there's bad, and this is one of the most extreme versions of that. This is, the dark spots are really good. Really good. Some of the best parts of the series where it's about this cult. Even though it's kind of racist, I'll let it slide. It was the 80s, so, but, it's there. But that's not the problem, right? The death cult and, like, the heart thing, and that's really cool, and the ending is kind of cool, but, like, and, like, the whole fight thing, that's pretty cool, and the kids, that's cool, and I like how they did a movie about India. That's a cool country, a lot of culture that isn't often explored. It seems that it's usually Africa that gets the explorations. I know that's an entire continent and not a country, but you know what I mean. It's got some, but it's also got some really bad things in it. The kid and the love interest are the worst ever. The worst. The worst. No dispute about it. Terrible. Undeniably horrible. Undisputably bad. So terrible. So bad. But it's got a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. So how do I rate it? So I decided to go with 6 out of 10. It's not the worst, but it's the worst of the original trilogy of Indiana Jones movies. So this was Steven Spielberg's first historical drama, The Color Purple. It has to deal with a black woman's life in, I don't know when it takes place, but a while back. And, yeah, it does seem pretty bad. I did have to deal with racism and sexism. There isn't much racism in here. There's a little bit. I'll say is a bit, but not much really. There's a lot of sexism mostly. It has to do with her dealing with the old guy that was I don't know, the guy that she was, like, sold to as, a child by her father to, and her, learning to stand up for herself, and her, finding out that there are, letters from her sister who was taken off to, Africa to do, missionary work. I mean, it's a really good movie, but I don't know. I guess watch it if you're into that kind of thing. I feel like if you are interested in, racism back in the day, then you'll probably find this interesting. And it does have a pretty good cast. It has Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey in it, so that's actually a pretty good cast. So I give it an 8 out of 10. So, this is Empire of the Sun. It's a semi-autobiographical, it's based on a semi-autobiographical book written by the author, I don't remember his name, about a rich British kid in China getting abducted and sent to a labor camp. It's pretty good. The beginning is really bad. But once they get to that labor camp, then it starts to get really good. And I still can't believe that Christian Bale plays the main character. He was so young back then. So, I give this one let me look for it here. A 7 out of 10. Okay, so this is Always. It's a remake of an old movie called That Guy Joe. It's not good. Yeah, that's really not much to say about this. The idea that, he's, affecting, he's inspiring people is actually cool, but the plot itself is pretty thin, in my opinion. Most people seem to agree with me on that. It's really, boring, too. It's just about, I also don't think that the acting is very good. I also don't think that the story is very interesting either. Although, I don't know, that might just be me. I haven't seen That Guy Joe, but I feel like that's a better movie. Probably is. So, yeah. I give Always a 5 out of 10. So, this is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It's about Indiana Jones, and he is a crusading. The movie is fine, but it's also good, though. I really like it, actually. It is a really good movie. It's one of my favorites of his. I would say that the acting is really good. Of course, Harrison Ford has his performance again. He's really good. There's no love interest. That's good. Well, I guess there kinda is, but we learned pretty early in the movie that she's a Nazi, so, yeah. And Sean Connery, is also very good, so I like him. The plot is pretty good. I like it. It's about the Holy Grail, but really the main thing I took away from this film isn't the plot, it's the relationship between the father and son. I think this is one of the best movies to do it. So if you like that kind of movie, if you're just a fan of movies, you should watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It is a 9 out of 10. So this is Hook. It is good. Yeah, I really like it. I mean, it's not like my favorite, but it's pretty good. I'd say that I don't understand why this is his lowest rated film, because there are worse. I'm also pretty sure that most of the people would say that, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is worse than this movie, which is great, and has a super short name, as opposed to that other film that I just mentioned. So, what is there in this film? It's about a guy who, what are you expecting? It's a Robin Williams movie. It's about a guy who doesn't spend enough time with his children, and then through the events of the film learns to spend more time with them. That's what it is. if you're expecting something better than that, you're expecting something deep or as good as the original Peter Pan movie, you're not gonna get it here, okay? The performances from the main character and the main villain are great, and I think it's a good movie if you do not think about it. If you just look at it as a kid's film, which it is, then you can be thoroughly entertained by it. It is not high-class art. It is not good as some other films, like WALL-E. The simple story leads for good humor, sometimes. Other times it's not so good, but sometimes it's good. And also, good acting. This is, I like Robin Williams. It's just he's in a lot of bad movies, but he's a good funny comedian. So I give this one a 7 out of 10. So the classic, most popular, maybe not most popular, but pretty popular, Jurassic Park. I believe it is Steven Spielberg's most successful film. It's pretty good. If you are a fan of film, you have already seen this movie. It is a classic. It is amazing. And I think it has continued to be, and it has aged well over the time. There are some things, at points I think it draws too long, but mostly it's an exciting thrill ride the entire way. The special effects are still impressive to this very day. The direction is amazing, and I think that the story and ideas in this film, and especially the acting, are very good, especially the Jeff Goldblum. He's really good in this. So good that they brought him back for the sequel to be the main character, although we'll talk about that movie later. This is very good, and I recommend it to anyone, although you've probably already seen it, or at least a billion of you have, because it was at the time the #1 biggest box office success. So that is his third movie to be #1 of all time box office wise. The first one was Jaws, second one was E.T., and the third one Jurassic Park. I believe that was his last one, because after that, huge blockbusters kind of came in after that. So, I'm not saying that this isn't a big deal, but I give this a 8 out of 10. So on to my favorite film that he's ever directed, Schindler's List. Very uplifting, like his other works. This was one of his first big successful drama films, and it netted him a couple Oscars. It's good. It's really good. It's really good. I cannot think of very many problems with it that I would consider major. I believe it's respectful to the time period. I also believe, unlike 1941, I believe it is respectful to the period. I believe that the use of color is very appropriate in the film. I believe that the movie is well made and well acted. And I think that it is a heartwarming story of an act of kindness in a war filled with terrible horribleness. Stanley Kubrick did not like the film, saying the World War II is about a bad thing, and this movie is about a good thing, but that's not. I think he said the bad stuff in World War II happened. Hitler killed 20 million people, Schindler saved 500, and I disagree with that, because even though I guess that's right, but that shouldn't mean that I we shouldn't respect this guy. I mean, he saved 500 people's lives. And their descendants are now more numerous than the people of Poland. So, or the Jews of Poland, at least. So, that is pretty impressive, in my opinion. So, I'll say that I give Schindler's List a 10 out of 10, and I really recommend it, and to anyone, it's a really good movie, and I think it is just great. So I say 10 out of 10. Okay. So this is The Lost World, Jurassic Park. It's terrible. The only good thing is Jeff Goldblum, who's great. They shouldn't have brought him back as the main character. I don't know why they didn't get back the old characters. It's kind of cool, the whole idea, but it was executed terribly. The amount of bad decisions in this film is astounding. Is literally astounding. I cannot believe making worse decisions than the people in this film. I know that Steven Spielberg likes to make fun of politicians because he did the exact same thing in Jaws. But really? So you're gonna try and bring the dinosaurs to the mainland? That's a great idea. That won't completely destroy the food chain. So, yeah, it's not good. I give it a 3 out of 10. So, this is Amistad, or Amistad, depending on how you pronounce it. It's a movie about a slave ship that gets, picked up in, like, Spain or something, or I don't know where it was. And it's about a court case. It's a real-life event about a court case about this slave ship that really laid the grounds for, anti-slavery, like, whole stuff. It's about the court case. It's really interesting. It's more of just a precursor to, Lincoln. There are a lot of things I like. The acting is pretty good. Almost in every, Spielberg movie, the acting is really good. And I think that the characters are really interesting. So I say that this is one of Spielberg's better films. I do find it very interesting how, even though they keep winning the court case, they keep getting taken higher and higher in courts. I'm not 100% sure if I understand the court case. It's very well acted. It's a pity it didn't make very much money. So I give it an 8 out of 10. Okay, so this is Saving Private Ryan. It is pretty good. It's about them trying to save a person named Ryan, who's a private, I assume. And it would be more interesting if it didn't just wholly drag in so many spots. It just gets really boring in some places. It's a pretty okay war film, I guess. I don't know if I would say it's really good. I haven't seen Shakespeare in Love, but it probably deserved to win Best Picture over that movie. But, you know, I guess that's something other people have talked about for a while. Years. Anyway, it's good. I don't know if it's really amazing, but it's pretty good. So I guess, like, the directing, on par. Of course, Steven Spielberg, every time. Like, come on. What am I supposed to say? The directing and music were amazing? Like, yeah, obviously. Almost every single Steven Spielberg movie is composed by John Williams. There are only, like, 4 or 5 exceptions. Like, almost all of them are composed by John Williams. So, of course, they're all good. All of them. They're all good. What would I even say? Like, oh yeah, John Williams, who's known because he, like, makes really good movies. He makes lots of he composes almost every famous movie soundtrack ever, and he's good. It's like, yeah, obviously. But I don't know, I've just been yammering about him. It's a good movie. I give it a 7 out of 10. Tom Hanks is really good in it, too. Okay, so this is AI, Artificial Intelligence. This has a kind of interesting history behind it. It was created in the, Stanley Kubrick, who I've done a video on before, reviewing all of his movies, bought the rights to Super Toys Last All Summer Long, and he was going to make a movie on it. Okay? So he passed over to Spielberg. Spielberg said, no, you should do it, you'll do it better. Kubrick was like, no, you'll do it better. And that just went on until eventually Kubrick gave in and said, after Eyes Wide Shut, AI would be his next film. We all know how that ended. Stanley Kubrick died, so he couldn't really direct the film. So, there it is. Steven Spielberg had to do it. I mean, out of, memory of Kubrick. And honestly, if you don't aren't a big fan of both of these creators, or at least Stanley Kubrick, then you won't appreciate this movie, and you'll just hate it. I didn't like the movie as a film, but I at least could appreciate the fact that it was Kubrick's idea, and this is the last film we got from him, technically. I mean, I guess technically this is a Spielberg movie, but, so it is really sad, watching it, kind of, but it's not a very good movie. Don't really, if you aren't a big fan of Stanley Kubrick, don't watch it. Don't watch it at all. It's terrible. The acting is appalling. The, story is hilariously awkward and bad. And the only thing I can really like about it, I know that this is a controversial thing, but I really like the ending. I mean, I don't think it made a ton of sense, but I thought it was actually the only time I was invested throughout the entire film. I also feel like this is a problem, is that Kubrick is known for going all the way with his ideas, even if sometimes they don't work out. And Steven Spielberg is kind of known for doing safe ideas. Really, he usually is pretty safe. He's directed mostly same type of film. He either directs two types of movies. He directs historical dramas, or blockbuster crowd-pleasing entertainment. It's not he doesn't really do very many art films or anything like that. So it's mostly crowd-pleasing for him. So it's kind of hard to mesh these two directors together. So it did kind of end up like a huge mess, especially considering the acting talent was pretty bad, because the main character was a kid. So, yeah, don't watch it. I give it a 4 out of 10. So this is Minority Report, the first cruise movie that Steven Spielberg made. Tom Cruise. Very interesting movie. It's I feel like he was kind of trying to direct those kind of new Mission Impossible type films. Didn't really work out for him. Some people liked it, and it is kind of still is kind of popular, although I think that the movie tries to do too many things and doesn't go all the way with any of them. So it just ends up being a huge mess. Can't really understand the plot of it. That's not good. Tom Cruise is playing Tom Cruise. He's not, he doesn't play a very good character in this one. I couldn't describe the character's attributes any more than it's Tom Cruise. But, I guess if you like Tom Cruise, maybe you should watch this movie. It's kind of like one of those early 2000s drama action films. It's not very good. But there are some interesting ideas, and the acting from everybody aside from Tom Cruise is actually pretty good. So, and of course, the directing is good, because, like, obviously it is. So, you know, I don't know, it's good in some places, bad in others, so, you know, it's definitely got some charms to it, and the ending is kind of interesting. I won't spoil it, because I don't really know how to describe it, I guess. I mean, it's not, like, super complicated, I don't have enough energy in me to do it. So, it is kind of good, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. So, this is Catch Me If You Can, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. So, it's got a pretty good cast. Obviously, the acting is good, especially because, you know, with these actors, you can't go wrong. This is probably one of Hank's better performances. I think that the fact that if this was a made-up story, I would kind of not like it, but just the fact that this is so true, and that, because if I were to watch it, I would be like, no, nobody could do this, right? Like, this is way out of the realm of possibility of my belief of what could happen. But since it actually did happen, I can't say, oh, this would never happen in real life, because it did. I think it's a really interesting idea, and I watched a talk from the guy that's in this, Frank Abagnale Jr., I believe, and it does seem really interesting, and I do kind of love how he just gets so good at it near the end. It's insane. You know, I say that this is a really good film, so I don't know, if you watch it, you'll probably like it, and I think, it's really one of his better, both critics and audience members will love it. I really think it's one of his better films, so I will say it's an 8 out of 10 for me. So, this is The Terminal, starring Tom Hanks and Catherine Zeta-Jones. I thought this movie would be terrible. I thought it would just be a dumb comedy, and yeah, it kind of is, but it really is good at that. And aside from a few jokes that were pretty stupid, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not. Well, you can't say I'm wrong, because this is just my opinions, but I really liked the movie. I know that some people hated it. I know some people said it was bad. And yeah, it was kind of racist, and I really feel like they could have done without the offensive accent. But it is, aside from that, I think it's good. So I would say that, you know, if you like comedies and Tom Hanks, you should watch this film. It's really good. The love plot line is really dumb. They could have cut that out. I really didn't like that part. Whenever that love story comes in, I'm just like, oh my god, I just get rid of it. I don't care. I just love how this guy, like, we go through this guy just, like learning how to just live at this terminal, and he just, like, lives there. And this dude's trying to get rid of him. I mean, I thought that nothing could happen like this, but in real life, this is a true story, based on a true story, inspired by a true story. Very different than the real story, because in the real story, he was there for several years, so I don't even know how that's possible. So, yeah, they made Steven Spielberg purchased the rights to the book, The Terminal Man, and kind of loosely adapted it based on the book that was written by the guy that actually lived at that terminal. So, I would give it a 8 out of 10, one of my favorites. So, this is War of the Worlds, starring Tom Cruise. If you know, since you heard my review of Minority Report, I'm pretty sure you understand that I don't really like Tom Cruise very much, and neither do I like this one. even though I don't really like H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, the book, because I feel like it's just over philosophical or whatever, philosophical, but this movie is just misses the entire point. This is just a dumb action movie. That's not even a good action movie. It's like a really bad one. The characters are paper thin. The thinnest characters I think Steven Spielberg has ever written. They're terrible. They're the most cliched things ever. It's like, oh, it's the dad that doesn't want to take care of his kids and he learns to appreciate them, and the kid who's over his head and wants to fight aliens or whatever. There's some redeeming parts. The visual effects are, good. Music's good, obviously. And the Tim Robbins is good in it. I liked him. So, I don't really like it, but it's got some good parts. So I give it a 5 out of 10. So, this is Munich. Based on the Munich massacre, which I wasn't alive in the 70s, so I don't know. I didn't know about the Munich massacre until this film came out, I wasn't alive when this film came out. Or wait, I actually would have been born the year this film came out, but, that doesn't matter. But, I meant, like, when I started to watch it, this is the first time I had ever heard of anything like this. I would say that it doesn't seem to be very disrespectful to the period, although I feel like making a movie about this kind of thing is kind of, I don't know, I just feel like you shouldn't, but I don't know, maybe I'm insensitive. I think that the story is kind of dumb. Maybe I know it's based on a true story, I don't know how real it is, but, depending on how it is, I guess that would judge how unlikely all of these situations are. I just feel like this whole idea is dumb, but maybe I don't know. There really isn't much to talk about. It's not like a terrible movie, and I do really like the film. The acting is really entertaining, and there's lots of good scenes in the film. And I do like when they get, like, the terrorists, and they shoot them, and they explode them. It's cool. But I don't know, it's not, like, amazing, so I give it a 7 out of 10. So, this is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The collaboration, again, of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. Although, this was not the early George Lucas and the early Steven Spielberg. This was the late George Lucas and the late Steven Spielberg. Even though Steven Spielberg is still good at directing movies, I believe he is better at directing historical dramas towards the end of his career, or towards the later end of his career. I'm just saying, he's pretty old now, so I can say it, towards the end. Anyway, and George Lucas went off the deep end, in his movie-making abilities, at least, so I mean, I feel like this is what we should have expected after the prequel trilogy was such a disaster. So yeah, it's not very surprising. Anyway, so, would I consider this good? No. Would I consider this okay? Yes. I thought that Shia LaBeouf would be impossible to watch, and after the first scene, I was like, yeah, that's totally gonna be the worst character in the movie. And no, he wasn't. He wasn't that bad. I thought he was actually kind of good in some spots, although I really wish that they had kept aliens out of it. Like, we don't need aliens in this. The special effects are cheesy. The ideas are terrible. Well, considering they're coming from George Lucas, that makes sense. And everything's bad except the acting, their directing are really good. So the plot, I guess, if you're gonna turn off your brain for a little bit, I guess it's fine, although that's not really what I look for in a movie, so I give it a 5 out of 10. So this is The Adventures of Tintin. It's about a guy named Tintin's adventures. It's, pretty misleading title, I think. I thought this movie was just gonna be like a normal, just like kids movie, right? Animated kids movie. I mean, yeah, it kind of was. It was pretty run-of-the-mill kids film. It wasn't bad, though. I would say that it's better than a lot of other kids films, and it does try a lot of new things. Like, I don't think that any Illumination would have the balls to make one of the characters an alcoholic and actually say it. So, that's good. Now, I mean, it's interesting about how this is done. I'm surprised. This doesn't seem like something Steven Spielberg would direct. I guess it kind of does, but he doesn't direct animated movies, so I guess this is first and last. His only one, at least. I mean, he's done a lot of, unless you consider Ready Player One an animated movie, I guess it kind of is, but it's also kind of live action, too. Anyway, I would say it's good, and you should watch it. But the one major drawback, the story and the characters and voice acting are good, but there's a major drawback. There's a serious problem, is that you can't watch it. Watch it, but don't watch it. You know what I mean? The animation steps so far into the uncanny valley that you don't get used to it. It's insane. Okay? That's 3 points off. Well, it wasn't a 10. It was higher, but I'm just saying it's a 7 out of 10. It's a good movie, but it's terribly animated. Terribly. So this is War Horse. It's a movie about a guy who raises a horse, and then a horse has to fight in World War One, and then it's taken in by a girl in France, I think, and then it gets back to the soldiers, and then the guy that was originally. A theme throughout the movie is coincidences and fate, which is not original, but I guess is well done. I'd say that the acting and the directing and the story is good. It's, obviously, this isn't a surprise. It's all good. It's really a good movie, and I recommend it. The plot is interesting. The thing is, I can't give in-depth reviews of all of these films, because if I try and go into detail, then I'll just end up spending way too much time on each movie anyway. So I think it's really kind of emotional. I think it's a good film. I think this was really a sign that Steven Spielberg should just work on more historical dramas, which he did continue to do. So I give War Horse an 8 out of 10. So this is one of my favorite of his films, Lincoln. It's about Abraham Lincoln, if you couldn't tell by the fact that his name is the title of the film and that his face takes up almost the entirety of the poster. But, you know, I think that obviously, I mean, I've said this for almost all of the movies, the acting is good, but this time it's extra good. Because Daniel Day-Lewis won Best Actor because of this, and this is really one of the best, most well-acted films ever, just period, ever. It's super good. Especially Daniel Day-Lewis. The tone is great. I think they keep a consistent tone throughout the entire film, and they make it fun and dramatic at the same time. It's amazing, extremely respectful to the period. The only thing I have to say is that the title, it should be called The 13th Amendment. There are some drawbacks. In a couple places, I feel like it kind of drags its feet and it's kind of a little boring. And especially during that fight scene between Lincoln and Mrs. Lincoln, and I just thought that was not like it wasn't a physical fight, but like they were just shouting at each other, and I just thought this is the worst scene in the film. And also the plot line with Lincoln and his son is kind of dumb, but I mean it's not like super bad, it's just not that great. Anyway, so Lincoln, which is probably one of my favorite films from 2012, maybe not my favorite, but one of my favorites, I give it a 9 out of 10. So this is Bridge of Spies. It's about a guy in the Cold War, and he has to defend this other guy who's like a Russian guy. And so he's defending this Russian guy, so tons of people hate him because he's defending him. And then he gets convicted, and then the guy has to have an exchange with him, giving him to the Soviets, and then in return they get 2 guys that were taken by the Soviets back. So Soviets, there's some in there. Anyway, so I mean it's about spies on bridges. Tom Hanks is great as usual, and most of the other acting, I really liked the Abel guy. He's really good. I found him the most entertaining on screen. It kept me entertained throughout, although there are many problems with it. But, you know, mostly overall, I would say it's a good film. So I give it a 7 out of 10. So this is the BFG. I hated this. I hated this movie. Okay, there are several reasons why. But the main one is that Roald Dahl is a great writer. One of the great writers. One of the greatest writers, I would say, actually. And I would say that every time, he's kind of like Dr. Seuss. It's impossible to make a book of his into a movie. But if you're gonna try, you could try better than this. This isn't scary. And I know people think, oh, what? But when you actually read most Roald Dahl books, they're horror fantasies. I mean, nowadays, if you're like older, you're not going to get scared by them. But if you're a kid, I mean, Charlie and Chocolate Factory 2, I read the first one, I really liked it. I read the second one, I was like, this is so scary, I couldn't read the rest of it, because it had human-eating monsters, aliens in it. So, also, because I don't know. But the thing is, he writes horror. This is just like a family-friendly film. It's just not very good. I would say that Um, this isn't good. It's not good. Don't watch it. It's bad. It's really bad. It's just like a bad kids film. It's not even, there's almost no redeemable qualities. The only thing is that there are some scenes of visual spectacle that look cool. I mean, the VFX looks really nice, and, obviously, everything I mentioned, the directing and music, the acting, well, actually, no, I take that back. The acting from the kid is absolutely terrible, but aside from that, the acting's pretty okay. Although, I just really don't think that it's really worth anything, so I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. So, this is The Post, starring Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks. It's very good. I really liked it. Very entertaining. I thought it would be extremely boring, but it wasn't. It was good. I would say I would give it an 8 out of 10. Anyway, there's more. I think that, the pairing of Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep's very clever, and since they're two of the best actors in Hollywood right now, they do a very good job playing off each other, especially. Thought it would be extremely boring, and I thought it would either be boring or it would just be tons of people being sexist towards the woman. And Meryl Streep, I don't remember her name. That came out wrong. In my defense, I don't remember the name of anyone in this movie. Anyway, so, there were a couple instances of that, and it was kind of, but it did seem realistic, so I'm not gonna write it off for that, because I do think that that's probably a realistic portrayal of it. It wasn't just trying to bash it in, it was more of a talking about the freedom of the press. I thought that was good, and I really thought that it was actually pretty interesting. Thought it would be really boring, though. So, there are some problems with it. There are a lot of points where it drags. That's true for almost every Steven Spielberg film, though. Although this is definitely one of the most entertaining movies I've watched about newspapers, newspaper publishing. So, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. So, this is Ready Player One, the final movie, hopefully. So, I guess West Side Story's set to come out this year, although it'll probably come out next year because of the coronavirus, but whatever. Ready Player One is a movie about, a video game where this guy is in a video game. Now, I hated everything in this movie. That's a bit of an exaggeration. I didn't hate everything in the movie. There were good parts. Definitely good parts. I'll name them. The storyline about the creation of the Oasis is very interesting, and I wish that they had just made a movie about that. And the references, those are very cool. I wish that this movie had just been all references and that they hadn't really had a plot. That would have been better than what they did. Because the plot is the most paper-thin, cliched plot I've ever heard of. And I am disappointed that Steven Spielberg would direct a film like this. He's directed other films that were bad, but this one is genuinely terrible. I mean, it's not like my least favorite. I have other ones that are worse, and I hate more. 1941, the BFG, Lost World, Jurassic Park, and E.T. But, this is still terrible. And it's not as bad as those, but I just feel like this dude feels like he's kind of like lacking in creativity, because from the minute it started, I could predict every single beat was gonna happen. It's not as extreme as it was in some other films, but I was just able to predict everything that was gonna happen, and it was so bad. I'll say the one thing I couldn't predict. Well, actually, I could, but it was kind of surprising. Is that she said she was ugly in real life, and she ended up to not be ugly at all, and she just had a birthmark that it looks like she has a black eye. So she's not ugly. I don't understand this whole ugliness thing, because she's not. Anyway, do not watch this, and if you do, then you don't need to listen to the plot, just watch the references. The Shining reference was pretty cool, though. So that's why it's not a 0, and I give it a 4 out of 10. So, this is a ranking, if you are interested. So, in conclusion, I believe Steven Spielberg is a very talented director, although I do not believe he is as talented as some make him out to be. I would love to be Steven Spielberg, don't get me wrong, but with the exception of Schindler's List and Lincoln, I have enjoyed very few of his movies genuinely. I respect almost all of his movies on a level where I say that they are good because, they're good. But I do not enjoy the type of movies that he usually puts out. So I would say that if you enjoy some of his movies, a handful of them, you'll probably like all of them. So I recommend that you do this, although it would probably take you a lot longer than it took me, because I have all the time in the world. So, I would recommend starting with Raiders of the Lost Ark and Jaws and The Color Purple, and then moving your way through his more popular films. And if you like those, then you should watch all of them. That would be my opinion. You're just gonna have to form your own opinions on him as a director. So I would say that Steven Spielberg, I really respect him, although I do not enjoy most of his films.